Hey everybody, welcome back. It is I, DrBossKey, and today we've got a special thing. One of our buddies, Polygon Workshop, I think it's Polygon's Workshop. We'll clarify in a second. Polygon Workshops. So they did us a wonderful service of picking up an Interstellar Sentinel and doing a playthrough, and they recorded it, put it on their YouTube channel. And so our guest today is, let me just hop on over. Do this transition. Perfect. There's Polygon Workshops. Hello.
Hi.
So,
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, so what we're going to do today is we're going to essentially watch the videos that they recorded and take the opportunity to do a little Q&A and a little breakdown, capture some tasks because, you know, there's no time like the first time. And as a game developer, it's super important that you capture that because that makes it, you know, better for all the other first timers that are going to approach your game. And then as their journey with your game, if you're lucky enough, like I am, you know, I'm very, very lucky to have some people in our community that have played the game over 50 hours. So where they start and where they're at now is an entirely different thing. So being able to also design for that journey and to see how it's starting to play out for them, and when they get their first 1CCs, and you know, just to see where they're at, also super humbling. So. Should I call you Polygon? What do you like to be known by?
Yeah, that's good. PW, Polygon. Either.
Yeah. So PW, tell me, what type of shmupper are you? And you're working on a shmup product or a shmup game, right? With Shmup Creator.
Yeah. So I am working on a game, but it's completely under wraps. I've got nothing to announce. But because of that,
it's a shmup though, right?
It is a shmup. Yeah.
All right.
And because of that, and kind of getting a little bit familiar with the community and that type of game, yeah, I'm kind of a novice completely with it. So other than playing, like I say in my video, other than playing tiny little bit way back, I've been away from that genre completely. So I'm kind of learning the ropes. And in fact, Interstellar Sentinel is kind of my first shmup in many ways.
Ooh.
So
that is super cool. As some people may or may not know, one of the things that I've been very fortunate to have coming from being a content creator and a Twitch streamer, I have a lot of people that aren't familiar with the shmup genre, or they only had a little bit of familiarity from the arcade days, but they never really got into it. And as you know, Mark from Electric Underground would say, mainstream doesn't really cover shmups anymore. Like shmups are these little things that just kind of got left behind. It's not to mean that there isn't still an audience out there for it, but it's very hard to actually entice modern gamers with a welcome back to what shmups are. You get a little bit more traction with the run and guns, and then you have these crazy breakout successes with like the Cupheads of the world, which is kind of run and gun and a shmup mixed together, and also crazy hard, but the art style really kind of pushed them, et cetera. So, well, cool. Okay, so and then from the Wayback Machine, PW, do you is there anything that you remember playing as a kid that you were into back in the day?
Yeah, I mean, I mention it again. We're gonna see a little bit of me talking about that, but yeah, like Tubular Worlds was my thing. When I wasn't able to get to an arcade, we had it on our desktop computer when we were kids, and it was that was our go-to basically.
Yeah. All right. Awesome. And then with
it's a cool game, but no one's ever heard of it or played it or not.
I think I had to do a Google search for that as well. I think last time I came across that, which is also really cool to see all the threads that have brought our community together to make shmups. And you know, the cool thing about indie game development is that it's easier than it's ever been. It's not to say that game development isn't hard, because it definitely is, but it's way more accessible. And that really means that people can come from so many different backgrounds and disciplines, and then bring their own flavor. We have so many composers, musicians, music producers, pixel artists. Yeah, so many people that are in the community, and they have this passion, and now they have this medium to sort of be their canvas. So, and it's been really cool seeing that over the last couple of years. Okay. Well, unless you have any questions for me, I thought we'd start the video and get trucking.
Absolutely.
Right on. All right. So just making sure everything is on. All things seem to look good. Here we go.
Let's play.
Hello and welcome.
You.
So this little introduction isn't going to be a normal thing for the playthroughs, but as it's the first video for the channel, thought I'd just do a little intro here. Also, thank anyone who's come over from the FFB channel.
Content creator.
Appreciate your support. It might not really be what the kind of content you're after following me on Farthest Frontier, but here it is anyway. So in this video, we'll be starting a series playing a indie game built on the same engine that I'm going to be working on, or have started working on, called Interstellar Sentinel. So this is the,
look at you, did a little
gameplay
little
for that.
graphic.
Appreciate everyone stopping by, and hopefully catch you again soon for the next one. That one. Cheers. So
It looks like you used AI to do a background remove on it.
Like I said,
I need to get my press package together.
Tiny bit of knowledge about it, but A, I'm not very good at these games, or very experienced with them, and
This is perfect.
B, although I've watched a lot of
communication dialogue to start difficulty selection.
Although I've watched or had DrBossKey's videos and streams on in the background, because I find it inspirational to hear his passion for developing his game.
Thanks, man.
I'm aware that there's some stuff like monster trophies and secrets and stuff, but I don't know where they are. You're not going to see some clever run where I'm chasing particular things.
But you might some point.
I've seen a few people play it a little bit, including DrBossKey himself. I'm kind of going in blind here, so I'm going to be giving my impressions. It's my opinions. I don't think DrBossKey will take offense anyway. He seems like a very decent dude. So I'll just
the more raw and unfiltered, the better, right? Like, because one of the things that as a game designer, developer, director, like when you get deep into the art, you lose all perspective. Like, it's just the way you're going to know your relationship with the thing you're trying to create and all the flaws and all the things that come with that. It's very easy to get defensive. And when you get defensive at that point, now, and you're trying to defend your art, you've kind of lost, right? Because you become deaf to what people have to say. So it's a discipline, it's a practice. It comes. I've got crazy amount of time as a day job game developer. I got started in QA, and words like when you write a bug should, right? That this word in particular you should only use when you know that's exactly how the design should be, because when people get defensive about the thing they're trying to create, they will key off of very small things like who are you to tell me what should and shouldn't be be working. So now that's the prima donna side of things. I personally think no filter, try your best to be polite and constructive, right? But even if you're just like, I don't understand, this is shit. Okay, fair enough. Like, that's still better than someone that is going to say that at all. And your responsibility as a developer is to try to filter that. I think I got some great advice the other day, which was basically players' opinions are important. They're absolutely their goal. This is what, allows you to craft the kinds of experiences you want. Player solutions, you shouldn't just follow blindly, because it is your responsibility to think about what those solutions may or may not entail and what they will serve the overall vision, right? So take those with a second degree of thinking, but always be open to the unfiltered advice. So
it's a difficult balance to maintain, where you're not taking it personally when you're passionate about a project, but also sometimes, people have an idea of what they want, but they don't always know exactly the way to get there is necessarily what they think it is. So I totally agree.
Yeah, I think to that degree as well, I've been very, very lucky to put the game out there as I've been chronicling the development journey, and the game doesn't quite fit the mold of other games, which is great. Like, at the base level, it's got its things. That's a hard thing to do, but then that also means that people that give feedback, they're well-intentioned, but that's your audience as well, that they're coming from a perspective of what they know. And it's sort of like the Henry Ford thing, right? If you asked horse and cart owners what they wanted, they just wanted a faster horse and cart, right? They didn't want a Model A, right? Like, and so sometimes you have to trailblaze, take the risks, put it out there, and then wait to see what comes back and understand where those perspectives are coming from. So it's an interesting kind of set of experiences you go through when you're creating a game. And also,
I was going to say as well, for me, even outside of obviously getting to know you a little bit here, that Interstellar Sentinel to me like instantly was one of those like, wow, this has a different like take on visually. It's very striking and sort of unique. It was one of the things that I was excited by before getting it, was definitely that kind of design and the visual representation of the world and everything.
Oh, that's awesome.
Very
Thanks
cool.
for the feedback on that. I've been very, very lucky that I've had a very long life of playing all kinds of different video games. And so not only have I played shmups for my entire life, like the coming in doing development has allowed me to go down holes, rabbit holes I didn't expect. Like we were just talking about Crimson Clover and how hard that game is and how respected it is in the community, and understanding those things. Gunvein, I love playing through. It is a hard freaking game. And trying to get to a 1cc is, it's a very tall order. It's a lot of dedication. And I love players that are trying to get to, to get to their 1ccs for that too. So, and then from the art side of things, like Castlevania Symphony of the Night is one of my favorite all-time Metroidvania, games. So a lot of my monsters and creature designs, like this project started out with basically being, I want to create my own kind of Metroidvania shmup at some point. The engine has some limitations, mainly you don't have global variables and you don't have a persistent save state. So having a longer game like that isn't something we can develop yet, but I think we will. I mean, the Sunny knows on the engine side that having the ability to save variables and have a global persistent state that we can update and set, it's on the roadmap. So and so I have these dreams, and this is kind of from an art perspective and a tech art side and kind of figuring all those aspects, it's kind of a bootstrap to getting able to build those types of experiences at some point too. Okay. One of the things that you mentioned is that you don't really understand the monster trophy system. Also got some fantastic feedback from a player just yesterday, in fact. And now I've already just posted 2 videos, but I've cranked through trying to improve the conveyance of how you pick up monster trophies, what the hints are, how to get them. And, again, like if people don't play and give feedback, you just don't know. So we might be a little over indexed on it in terms of trying to improve conveyance. But that's definitely, it's, the nice thing about Shmup Creator is that you can pretty quickly go through an iteration of changes as long as you're organized and structured about that. So, all right, let's continue.
What I personally think about it is not necessarily what other people will think about it. So yeah. So right off the bat, this is nice. We've got like a in-game.
Oh, real quick, are you using keyboard or are you using controller?
Controller.
Okay, and are you analog stick or D-pad?
Stick.
All right, cool, awesome. The game's built with that in mind because you can be silky smooth on the controls, but a lot of people play with mouse and key, well, just keyboard. And then I go, why? I mean, you can, and when we do it as developers, but why? So, all right, good to know.
Menu sort of system, and the black background's very clean. It helps me instantly understand what's going on here. And we've got some controls in the bottom left. Not a massive fan of how high they are on the screen, and it kind of overlaps the character as you come in. So maybe that could be shifted down. I'm going to be talking about stuff like this because
sure.
I enjoy games, game design, and giving my input on them. I also get into the character and these kind of...
Let's see here. Difficulty select. I thought I already lowered that, but I'll double check it. Difficulty select. Controller tutorial, check vertical position. Cool. All right. Again, if you don't take notes, it's a wasted opportunity.
All weapon locators, but I think I'll probably do that in a kind of wrap up section where I might add some imagery and some stuff I've done myself with the assets just to illustrate my points. But anyway, so difficulty, and we've had a nice little vocal line to tell us what's going on. Shoot this communication dialogue to start difficulty, and it tells us that we've got a top and bottom weapon. I guess both work. So because I've been using this engine as well. And there may be a good reason for it. But yeah, he's utilizing this sort of menu system where you're destroying the options. I personally found...
Yeah, it's fun when you can look behind the curtain. So yeah, so each one of these dialogues is basically an enemy, because one of the cool things about Shmup Creator, and one of the things that is maybe not as cool, is that it's versatile. So you can create a sprite, make it an enemy, and you can script around that enemy. You actually have more versatility sometimes with enemies in terms of positional layering, attachments, attaching to other enemies, than you do with the actual text-based UI system. I use a mixture of both, and they have their kind of limitations, but some of the power of Shmup Creator is that it has very flexible thinking. And so once you kind of find a way to that, it really shows in the way that the developers kind of challenge to like, well, just because it's an enemy doesn't mean it couldn't be something else. At the end of the day, it's a sprite that you're rendering, and why not attach different types of logic to that? So super, super cool.
That I preferred lower kind of life totals, so the choice is a little more instant than it was then, but that might be my choice in weapon. I can't remember which one I used. I think it was the bottom weapon. So we'd definitely be starting in casual. And it's no shame in knocking the rust off, but I think it's more, it's not a case of rust. I just getting started in this genre again. Again, it might be covered in my preamble, but the last real shooter, other than joining my mate for a couple of sessions of Icariga back however many decades ago that was now, yeah, other than that, was back in the 90s when I was like 10 years old. We had a game, I might pop it up on the screen now, called Tubular Worlds that I used to play on our PC. But anyway, so I'm going to try the top weapon now, which is, I'm using Xbox pad, so it's the X.
Real quick, how deep into that game did you get? A few hours?
Not very. I was a kid and very inexperienced with gaming at the time, so yeah, not very far, unfortunately. But it was the one that we would continually play, even though, yeah, we weren't very good at it.
Well, I mean, the thing is shmups are just hard, and they're hard for different reasons, especially on older hardware, right? So things like inputs and things like that as well. So no, it's good. It's good to know. And look, it captured your imagination enough to bring you back to the fold with new eyes and to kind of rekindle some of that feeling, right?
Absolutely. Yeah, see, I'm not a fan of how long this takes personally. I really like the... And by that, to clarify, do you mean the button timing?
Mm-hmm. Oh, you mean the time it takes to destroy the dialogue? Yeah, the design behind it was to essentially give players an opportunity, because this is the very first time you're understanding the buttons. Right, that's why you get kind of like a movement tutorial and like which buttons to press. So, and it's a very low pressure, but I didn't want people to press the button a few times by accident and then just destroy and be locked into it. So that was kind of the thinking there. But also every bottom weapon is about 10 times more powerful than your top weapon. So if you use the bottom weapon, and I wound up switching it in the last couple versions to that particular one, the kind of the laser sword, very Einhander-esque. If you use that, then the dialogues destroy even faster. So yeah. So, and then there's a whole other side of things where trying to make sure that people can't destroy the dialogues at the same time to get the both bonus lives. So yeah, it was it's hopes and dreams in a lot of ways. So yeah, I appreciate that.
Sound effect stuff, but I think like that could just be toned back a little bit volume wise.
Let me go back real quick.
I think like that could just very cool. Try and time mine sound effect stuff.
Yeah, so we're at 5 minutes 6 seconds.
But like the very cool sound effect stuff, but I think like that could just be toned back a little bit volume wise. It's a little overwhelming.
In terms of sound effects, are you talking about the sound effects for the extra life, the extra ship, or? Oh, okay.
It's because it's so repetitive and it's the first thing you hear, and it's quite intense as a initial thing. That was my thought.
Mm-hmm.
But
Yeah. There's let's see, the last version I've done another pass between music and
Just to
sound effects.
double clarify. I don't mean when you actually get into the game. There's nothing, it's not overpowering. Then it's just during that sort of intro section. I felt it was a bit intrusive. That was all.
Yeah, no, and I definitely appreciate it. So, there's when you're playing the actual game and you get an extra ship, then you have all the other sound effects plus the music on top of it. So it's kind of but I mean, it's I'll capture it as a note. If I wanted to make it a dynamic, then I would have to break it into a separate asset just for that. So could be a polish item, but I'll have to think on it. New volume level down. All right, cool.
So this is cool. I like how this shifts. And the fade-in's really nice as well. I did see briefly him testing I say him, you're probably watching, I hope, at some point.
Doing it live.
But, yeah, so I saw you kind of testing just to double check that with the updates to the engine that everything was working fine. And so I've seen this kind of menu before, and although I do like it, I think this green grid could be toned back a little. It's a little bit too intrusive for me. Again, this is my own thing, so we'll definitely go for tutorial. As I say, okay. I mean, it doesn't say to shoot it, so it kind of makes sense, but maybe like as a...
Captain's log. I'm placing the Veil Piercer starship on autopilot to get my hands dirty collecting monster soul bits.
Monster soul
I didn't
bits.
actually check whether to see... see, this one says fly over here, so maybe that could be in that previous menu, because it wasn't totally obvious after shooting the first option. And...
You mean flying into the portals? Oh.
Yeah, if we carry on, I kind of go into a little more what I meant. So if I go quiet, it's because I'm reading. Fly over here.
You've already put more time into the tutorial reading than most people.
Really,
which I appreciate.
Speed and control. I don't know if the
Weapon system. Top weapon.
Not sure if...
Rapid fire. Great for dealing with low health enemies.
Okay, so the top weapon for low health stuff. Yeah, I'm not sure whether not sure whether my dead zone settings carry over from my choices within sort of Shmup creator games, but
they do not. They're per game.
Exactly how I'd want it to feel at the moment.
And did you just say that's exactly how you want it to feel?
I'd want it to feel at the moment.
All right. So the cool part is I did a video on setting your analog stick controls. So and in that video I have what I ended up using here. I think it was like 0.4 and 24 or something like that. So
yeah, the controls are just so amazing. The speed of it's just so good.
I had to make sure that the Sunny didn't break it. The default analog stick controls were so squirrely. I was like, just put these in, like, and because it's obviously something I tune around my game, so you can still push them in either direction. But yeah.
Power shot. This is great for dealing with high health enemies. You may notice how much faster this weapon bay destroys these communication transmissions.
Okay, cool. But yeah, maybe again the sheet here, because the first menu was, I think it said sheet here, the second one didn't say anything, the third one said sheet here, and this fourth set doesn't say sheet here, so it might be kind of implied by the...
Were you were gesturing?
Yeah, the first one said sheet here, the second one said nothing, the third one actually said fly here, not sheet here, so when I said that wasn't actually accurate, and then this one obviously doesn't say anything again, so it was just a continuality in the kind of design languagey stuff, I guess, was what I was kind of...
Yeah, no, and I think it makes sense. So I wound up having to break the paradigm because I wanted to teach movement at the very beginning of the tutorial, like additional movement, right? So hence the fly to the first dialogue. But I figured since the dialogues are the same visually, that and you don't have too many choices at that point, that players seem to pick it up with I got to shoot the dialogue. So
I think for me the only issue was the middle one, because you go from sheet to go to back to kind of sheet. That I think that was the bit that kind of threw me as trying to look at it kind of objectively and as I was playing, without trying to analyze it too much from I'm also using the same engine to develop a game point of view. That was my takeaway.
I think under the hood, one of the things that I wanted to do, because I overbuilt the tutorial. This is like my 5th version of the tutorial at this point, and it's trying to boil it.
Imagine it's something else going on in the background.
Trying to boil it down to like just the pieces and try to get the timing. And so I actually have a number of trigger volumes that are switching on and off things. That's why I'm actually having you move to that spot as opposed to just shooting it. So, but I didn't see too much confusion, but it's fair feedback, so I appreciate that.
Mid-weapon. Utility. Fires automatically when firing your top or bottom weapons.
Mid-weapon utility fires automatically firing your top or bottom weapons. Cool.
So you may note it. So in the updated tutorial, it's no longer the mid weapon. It's now the auto weapon. So because that's this one here. Cool. It used to be the mid weapon, but I've recently changed out from the player ship to a player character, and we went to the gun portal model. And so I was like, oh yeah, that needs an update. Iterative changes.
Super weapon, butt saver. Cancels enemy bullets and makes you invulnerable. Try it out now.
Super weapon online.
That's a super weapon, which is B. Cancels enemy bullets. Yeah, so maybe like the try it out now, or I don't know if as well as, but to maybe I don't know, sort of. I know, like you've said before, about it's difficult if not everyone's using an Xbox pad, and like your generic pad you've used for your somewhat similar to what I'm using in mine. But yeah, maybe something on this menu to kind of indicate that. And that super, I tell you, that is a thing of beauty.
Thanks, man.
Your weapon set will downgrade.
Yeah, we don't have the ability to in script detect controllers, and so I was like, well, because I'm a PlayStation controller guy as well, so I was like, well, even if I just put in the A, B, X, Y, and then the square, triangle, circle, X, then I'd have these kind of overloaded iconography for the buttons. I didn't have a good way to kind of get a visual design for that. Ideally, all of this would just be detectable whether you have a controller plugged in or not, and to know at least the 2 main controllers and be able to switch. So, but we don't have it on the engine side yet.
To the previous weapon set. A weapon set is the top, mid, and bottom weapons. The DrBossKey that I know doesn't blow up starships too often. Well, while he is inside them, at least. Mwahaha. Ha.
I believe you chuckled there at the mwahaha.
If you feared, yeah. So what do I do? Yeah, I'm not too sure about.
You got it. I have faith.
This. Yeah, I think just some continuation of the sheet here prompts or something. Even if it's not the words, just something to indicate that a little better. And the fact that after thinking about it, the thing that I would have done was, if it was me who was in charge, I would have had that same way as you had it, but have an icon on that next to it. So it says shoot here, and then there's a little icon, and then instead of writing shoot here on every single one, you can just have the icon to kind of indicate that it definitely was that you needed to do.
Yeah, like a target icon?
Yeah, because sometimes at the end of the dialogue on the option, I felt like I wasn't sure whether there was like something I was supposed to be doing to do with what was being said, rather than shooting it to get rid of it before I'd, you know, as a complete novice, was sort of like I didn't want to miss something. So that was part of the reason why. But yeah. So.
Yeah, I definitely hear you on the feedback there. I think one of the things I ran into with trying to put iconography, and I do it a little bit later in the tutorial, but that you technically aren't shooting, you're shooting the whole dialogue and not at the icon. So I was like, well, maybe that creates confusion there. At the end of the day, because I went much more heavy-handed previously, I was like, well, I think part of at least my core philosophy in terms of game design, and this may be a bit old school, is that I try to be less dogmatic in letting players discover what they need to do. So it's almost like the tutorial is a bit of a puzzle, right? Where I can see you thinking about your weapons, your positioning. So that's at least the thinking there. So, but I appreciate the feedback.
And then appears behind me. I'm not sure if that's intentional or.
In
fact, that one then appears behind me. I'm not sure if that's intentional or.
Side effect.
Power-ups. I'm your designated power-up giver to keep your
I'm excited to
butt
see
out
this.
of trouble.
So many
Don't
iterations
worry.
in this.
My magic lets you fly your ship into me to phase power-ups into the ship. Or you can send me a signal with your weapons to drop the power-ups in the world. Meowth.
You're also incredibly patient. You're so patient as a player. Most players are already shooting and blowing up the dialogues, and I made sure I put in text so where if you kill the dialogue before the voice line completes, if there is another voice line that appears with the dialogue right afterwards, then I cut the voice line. And then, but if there's not, and there's a section where you go in kind of the next bigger sections, then I let the voice line continue to play out to the end. So
that was a pain. That was a pain for mine because I've done a similar thing for my tutorial, and that switching the text triggers and stuff was an absolute. It's a maze.
It gets fiddly pretty fast. Yeah, absolutely. But the design thinking there, because I just did a video, I think today I did a preview update with like, hey, we've updated. I did the updated tutorial yesterday, and then I've already made changes again to tutorial today. But I pointed out like one of the things that I really enjoyed about the design of tutorial in this case was that while I have an intro cutscene that is going to be optional, I don't want to ever force people to go through that stuff because it's just not the type of gamer I am. It is important for players to find the things they love about your game, and your characters are a big part of that. The more that they can find the characters expressing themselves, to understand the dynamic between the characters, whether they're funny, what they sound like. Because again, not for me, I'm not I've got a huge story world. I got a big, it's all there, but how I convey it, like, it's like anything else. You don't want to convey, the kitchen sink and everything to the player because it bogs down the experience. I serve gameplay first, but the tutorial. Go ahead.
Sorry, I say you definitely hit on the not overwhelming with the tutorial. Like, I think it's a very nice pace, and like the amount that you're given information-wise is spot on.
I was thinking about still doing like an advanced scoring tutorial, and also just a pro tip for the people out there too, right? Is people aren't going to know how to play your game. And if you're a content creator, even if you're not, sitting down and just doing a how-to, like, this is how the score system works, and to really get into it, this is how the ranking system works. Players will enjoy that, and it gives you an opportunity to create content for them to set the kind of expectations of what they can go into the system with, right? So yeah, I've been thinking about that too. Some of it could be interactive, some of it could be content creation, or kind of a hybrid where we create more like developer levels to then commentate over while we're kind of playing. So that's something I've been thinking about too. So. But yes, then to finish the thought, so the opportunity here to not have the actors, the characters, read the text verbatim. That's one of the nice things that I like. Like, you try to make it as succinct as possible in your text, but if you have a few more words or a little bit more that you don't put in the text, it gives you a reason to continue to listen, and it also gives you the ability to put these little micro experiences in to give you like the flavor, to give you more personality, right?
It's very well done.
Thanks, man.
Left, I guess.
Oh, wait. I was not paying attention. Okay, here we go.
Sorry, I'm trying to sync audio as well.
Yeah, so I'm at 10 minutes, 43 seconds.
Oh, got you.
And 3, 2, 1.
I should probably use this bottom weapon, I guess. What's that about? I see that's...
Okay, it's very important. I'm gonna roll this back a little bit here, just to. I want to see kind of what you're doing here.
Fly your ship into me to phase power-ups into the ship, or you can send me a signal with your weapons to drop the power-ups in the world. Meowth.
I should probably use this bottom weapon, I guess. What's that
Nice.
about?
Okay. So one of the cool things, it's a weird thing with design language here. I have a power up giver. It's just an enemy, but it doesn't do damage to you, so you can run into them to collect them, which becomes actually a thing that is layered into the pacifist mode. Gives you kind of a secondary set of challenges, but also that you can shoot your weapon at her. She's my stream cat, by the way, and DrBossKey's sidekick. So you can shoot a weapon to signal her to teleport out to drop the power up, right? So it makes me chuckle, but getting players to understand that they could do both, it was interesting because you actually wound up just doing both, where you shot her and then you just kind of collected her. So then you're exploring your weapons here and you're shooting the Lokis, which is good. And then in this next sequence, the reason why the Lokis appear in the upper left is to make it as hard as possible for you to get to them with your weapons, to encourage you subconsciously as a player to understand you can run into the Lokis. That took forever to get to. And this will only been possible with playtesting.
That's that character.
Weapons up.
It's kind of funny because
Weapons up.
I've seen again, like I don't know it in any great detail, but I've seen
The train of thought that never returned to the station was just remarking I hadn't associated the Lokis as feline from watching others playing the game. Ah, okay. Appreciate that. Look at you, Mr. Content Creator, putting some ad libs on top of the video. I appreciate the production values, man.
It's good to clarify that that's not part of your game. That's something I've added. I realise that unfortunately the white font I've used might not necessarily be clear that that's not actually. You're
getting some you're getting some live stream over Discord compression artifacts, so it's not going to look as good for you. But for the stream, it's very readable for me.
Weapons up. Thanks for the help, team.
Okay, let's see here.
Yes, I've got to collect.
Weapons up. Weapons up. Thanks for the help, Weapons up. Let's take a look at our suit schematic. This is the only vulnerability point on the suit. Of course, it's the super weapon reactor core that I am basically strapped to. Well, back to plan A. Don't take damage from enemies. Got it?
Cool. Cool. So again.
So you may answer it here in the second. Oh, here, let me get a second.
Shoot this.
Okay. So since I've got you here, does this make any sense to you?
It absolutely does. I feel like I'm about to mention this graphic directly below my character.
Mm-hmm.
The cutoff was the thing that I mentioned, but to be honest, I think it's kind of unnecessary. I think the description and image on its own without that is more than enough to convey what it is you're trying to say.
Oh yeah. No, I appreciate that. So what I've found is that people that play shoot 'em ups, especially if they don't play bullet hell, they don't really recognize, like some of the old school shmups, right, are big hitboxes.
Sorry, I lost you audio then.
Oh yeah, 1 2 1 2.
Yeah, okay.
All right, cool. We're back. Yeah, so what I've found is that a lot of people that play shmups casually, or they only played shmups back in the day, especially if they've never played any bullet hell shmups, that the concept of like the ship, like only the cockpit being the place that you can take damage from, right? Like that's a pretty foreign concept. So that's why I kind of over explain it in this particular case. And then the other side of this is that the reason why he's bigger on screen there and you have the extra graphic is just so you have a better visibility of the character, right? Because he's smaller than I could make him bigger, but if you make him bigger, as in the main player character, then the feeling of agility gets smaller because of bigger sprite moving, even though it's the same speed. Perception wise, doesn't give you the same agility. And at the end of the day, DrBossKey, when he's in front of like some of these bigger monsters, the fact that they could swallow him in one bite kind of tickles my fancy. So yeah, one of my a really good friend of mine who also plays a lot of shmups and is a fantastic game director. He said one of the things that he loves the most about shmups is that it's one ship against a vast, unrelenting, dangerous world. And when you're small against all these big things, big hordes of enemies, all these things like that really drives home that fantasy of, one man against everything. Right. And a lot of that has to do with the size of your ship on screen or your player character. So
yeah, it's a very important part of it for sure.
All right. And here we go.
Yeah, I think it could be clearer. I don't know if you said as well before, but this graphic at the bottom with the cut-offs on the...
Trophy medals. Screen clearing enemies will summon the monster trophy enemy. Destroy...
Okay, so let me just run that back. Are you're talking? So your comment was about this graphic that's cut off here?
Yeah, it's because of the back edge being so abrupt. I know like what it is, but I think if it was me personally, I might just remove the wings so the alpha channel kind of followed up his shoulder around his hair. And stuff.
I got you. Yep.
Yeah.
I just updated this graphic yesterday, so and I think I actually wound up dropping the wings from that. So because I need to change the spot from yellow, because this was a version we tried and didn't work. Yellow. Color theory, a whole other aspect. I did a video on that too. But yellow gives you that very much that caution, and it's very eye-catching, but it also is in the same color spectrum as your player weapons, because we use yellow for that. Primarily, if it's yellow, it's safe, even though it's cautionary in that respect. So this kind of, we wound up going with what you have now is like this kind of vibrant pink. So also, I'm trying to figure out, I'm still going to update the graphic, but you can see here on the player, this round circle indicator also is the indicator for when your super weapon is online. So, and that way you don't always have to look up in the left corner to know when your super is online. Still working on the graphic for that, but yeah. Okay. Cool. Thanks for the clarification there.
This
summon the monster trophy.
Bottom with the cut-offs on the...
Monster trophy medals. Screen clearing enemies will summon the monster trophy enemy. Destroy the monster trophy enemy to earn a medal.
Sharing the screen of enemies. So what?
I actually fixed that. So.
And you guessed it. This will spawn more monsters. Medals let you reach higher chain combos and are lost on death. Now, how fun is that? 1cc dreams, here we come.
Yeah, I think that I'm really excited about this whole monster trophy mechanic, and like I said, I'm vaguely aware of it, but don't really know how it functions. So in that explanation, I'm not sure, like when it says clear the screen of enemies, whether that, like, do I get one every time I clear a screen of enemies, or does it mean a particular set of enemies, like of the same type or something? I'm not sure. I'm sure I'll figure it out by playing, but that bit was kind of a little less clear, I guess.
Yeah, so very good feedback. Also very timely too, because I just, with the next version, it's going to be way more clarifying. To answer your questions, it's technically a mixture of things.
You cut out there, sorry.
Oh, 1 2 1 2.
Yeah, I think you're back.
And we're back. All right. So thanks, stream. Thanks, Discord. Yeah. So what I was saying is that in the next version is going to be updated. So it's going to be a lot more clear. So I went a little more heavy-handed. But to answer your question in this case, screen clearing enemies, it's actually enemies leading up to the monster trophy, and then while you have the monster trophy hint on screen clearing whatever enemies are also present when the monster trophy hint is there, that will then cause you to spawn the monster trophy that you destroy, and that then starts another set of spawns for enemies, usually 1 or 2 screens worth of enemies. So it doesn't affect the entire level because the layering gets a little crazy at that point. But yeah, so that's the and look, I mean, I just got some fantastic feedback from a person that scratched their head pretty heavily. Just a rando wonderful person out there that took time to hop in Discord and be like, hey, I don't get this. So, and we actually cleaned up the language, added a few more bits of iconography. One of the things that I struggled with, the OG version of me, like the hardcore version, was like we didn't have hints at all. Then it would just be these things that would appear. But then the problem I ran into with that is I was like, well, the modern gamer doesn't have patience to, like if you're very, very lucky, the hardcore gamer may tear apart your game and put the time in to learn where all the trophies are. So I was like, okay, I would rather have a hint and maybe some confusion why they couldn't get it, to know that it's at least at that point in the world, and that becomes a mystery. So I was like, all right, cool. Like we could do that, as opposed to not having them at all and then getting to the end of the level and going, well, I don't even know where I would start to look for the trophies I missed. And then I used general language, which is to kind of just suggest kill everything. Like it's a shooter. You always be shooting. Don't ever let up. Kill everything. And if you do that in general, that is the pathway to unlocking monster trophies, and that's our version of dynamic difficulty in that case. So conveying all of that into a tutorial is a crazy challenge, so without trying to make it like a whole book thing. So
yeah, unfortunately it's not the last time I mention it, just not in a necessarily negative way, but it is something that continues to be I'm not sure why I got one, so you'll get to hear me say that multiple times, but I do have a much better understanding now of how the mechanic works. So
yeah, I think it's so the cool part is if you play again, especially with the next build, I'm working on the build now, so maybe the next day or so, then you can see it with the new conveyance and see if that actually starts to help understand it. Because the other thing is that there's this bit of nuance, which is so you have these things called advanced monster trophies. So they're a little bit extra crazy, and they generally lead to mini bosses. You generally only have 1 per level, but then you have this mini boss encounter, and we stop the camera and things go crazy, and you're like, I don't, but to get to those in general, some of those are score gated on top of it. So from the previous levels, and it's a running score. So you have to have at least either a highness score or a royal highness score. Jeez, kitty. Speaking of Lokis. Yeah. She's like, I need lap time. But you don't have any power ups.
Unfortunately, I can't actually see you on my feed, so I don't get.
Well, you can see it in the aftermath. Yeah, it's because it's the desktop, and you don't see the camera from OBS. All right, cool. Let's we'll keep this trundling.
Reset if die. They also spawn more monsters too. Cool music, by the way.
Thanks, man.
Kill enemies before the meter drains to keep it going for maximum fun and prizes.
Kill enemies before the meter. Oh yeah, cool. I'd say that maybe the chevron is a little.
Green glowing goodies to fill your super weapon. I mean, super weapon drives need to be powered by something. You know what I mean? Wait a minute.
Yeah, so I was going to say about the chevrons not being necessarily clear enough when they're indicating, but I think it goes back to what I said about the green grid. If you drop that back by basically dropping the brightness on it, or there's a few things you could do for it, then things like the chevrons would pop more. There's not enough, almost like enough distance between the character and the background, and it kind of imposes on some of the other UI stuff, because all this stuff's so good. It's like, yeah, it shouldn't be noticeable that the green's cutting through it, I don't think, personally. But anyway, that's my my suggestion there. So killing what's good, so it's saying about filling the, so there you go, the chevron there. They are obvious, but like I think it could top a little more.
Mm-hmm.
Personally widen them so it's like a way more obvious which bit it is you're trying to indicate on the screen.
Okay, I can appreciate that.
This is going to be terrible. I have to...
Don't be so worried. You're gonna play the game a bunch. You're gonna get better.
Just trying to get to the bottom weapon. I've got to kind of charge up. Time of danger. Charge.
Exactly. You're noticing the bottom weapons is charged.
The made thing. So I've seen that. One thing I'm going to have to, because I have seen this being played out before, and this totally could be intentional, and it's a me thing rather than the community. Shoot 'em up community would say, "What the hell are you talking about?" But this background's incredible artwork. I'm going to go into at a later point, but some of these more foreground objects, I do understand like parallax speed and stuff, but I feel like it's a little much. Like maybe even if it's just as a first timer, casual noob type player playing this, it's a bit like throwing me in at the deep end visually with that going on while then also trying to take on the enemies and stuff. So I just noticed it before when other people were playing that I think it's amazing, but just like pull back the speed on the parallax panning of some of the closer kind of background objects. Anyway.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, I can appreciate that. I went with the speed to the parallaxing gives you the conveyance of speed. So at the end of the day, for the most part, I mean, you're focused on all the things that are going to kill you. So the background winds up becoming kind of a secondary to that. But I appreciate that.
It's only this opening sequence, opening level. As a newcomer, it's just it's a bit too fast, I felt, but I mean, it's not necessarily what other players would think at all, but that was my personal experience of it.
Yeah, I'll keep it in mind. I've tried it slower and it didn't feel quite the way I wanted it to, but you know, I definitely appreciate the feedback.
I don't think I want to take on pacifist mode yet.
Don't want to take on pacifist mode.
Let's just try and even get through the first level. So those low-key things.
Good movement overall. Good spread. Good choice, by the way.
Yeah, so
I'm only teasing you about pacifist mode.
And chat while playing.
Yeah, good luck with that. It's hard to chat and it's hard to commentate and play. It's a whole other skill set.
And one thing, a massive positive as far as I'm concerned.
Perfect super weapon opportunity. Trying to build that muscle.
Visuals and graphic style, absolutely love it. There's like such a cool. So what we at health wise, went back up there slightly. Is that health? Yeah, cool. So
okay, so real quick,
one.
let's wind this back for a second.
And
so aside from the commentating, which is totally fine, I'm just going to take a look at this again. So mid-size enemies are definitely trying to encourage you to use your bottom weapon, but it's totally fine that you're still being successful. But by the way, just Mr. I'm not very good at shmups. I'm not very good at shmups. Watch the series of dodging that happens here, right? Like, let me see here.
One thing.
So you're talking, you're controlling. Now you kind of got pressed up down here, and then you have these guys. So you switched screen from the kind of being down here to up here. And of course, the targets, you're kind of spreading your bullets between them, so they're living longer because of that. They're spawning more more bullets. These bullets are homing bullets. So now, because of the way that you tackled this, regardless of the super weapon opportunity, this is going to put a lot of pressure. But check this out. You're up here. You've got a lot of bullets coming towards you. You actually dodge this bullet. Check this out, frame by frame. You're in the pocket here. You've got exits, right? You decide to go back up higher, like even though you got the UI here, which is totally fine because it helps get you into a place where you're still missing the bullets. You come back down in between these bullets here, almost take damage there. but again, the damage points. Always, generally, the rule of thumb is if you can be nice to the player, because games are already really hard, try to be nice to them in terms of your collisions. So you didn't take a point of damage. You managed to, like, reflex-wise pull back out of that.
Yeah.
You come back down in here, right? You still got these waves because that took a lot of your attention, but you didn't take any damage. I mean, that's like already at a level that a lot of people don't have dexterity for.
Might be a lot of luck involved there.
Absolutely. Well, and some of it is you're learning the language of controls, how fast you can move, all kinds of things. So you didn't pick those guys off, which is totally fine. They're going to put some more bullet pressure down here for you, but you've got an exit, which is totally good here.
There's also a wider narrative of me not using my bottom weapon for the majority, if not all, of the first run. So we'll just get that out there now.
And the best part is that you're not alone.
There might be some interesting things from it that you hear me say that you'll think, oh, no way, like I didn't really,
No, I appreciate that. Well, and I mean, from a controls perspective, every additional button that has a function, that takes time to map into your reflexes because those are your tools, right? Each button does a different thing. Finding your super button, right? And with shmups, you go from macro vision, being able to see the whole screen and kind of where you're at. And then as you get more and more dangerous, you kind of have to get back to your micro vision. And once you clear the threats of micro dodging, destroying enemies that are close to you, then your vision expands again, and you're always trying not to look at your character as much as possible. But that also means that, and one of the core aspects in general, the wisdom is this: don't have too many enemies that take way too much damage. And in our core game loop, because I also want to switch a lot of weapons, we have both weapon sets, right? So you have the top weapon for shooting your popcorn enemies. Rapid fire helps you really get those alignments of the guiding bullets for shooting and where you're at on the screen. And then you have your bottom weapon, which is certainly more, you got the charge up. It's a little bit more, it takes more risk. It does do 10 times more damage, but you have to sort of develop the efficacy of seeing that in effect. And also just finding the stuff you like, right? And then the core game loop is about identifying when to switch between the weapons. And you're always kind of switching back and forth between the weapons, depending on what's going on with the enemy spawn. So cool. It's going to be cool to watch you develop with this.
We love it. There's
took some damage from the undead dragon there.
So what we at health wise, went back up there slightly.
Nice. You did manage to kill the dragon. That's great.
Health? Yeah, cool. So the green ones are health. Yeah, it's got this amazing sort of visual style or vibe.
The fact that you can speak at all is fantastic.
Almost pinball machines and classic rock art and that kind of, I don't know what the technical term for it is, but it has a lot of that vibe about it. And I know from, so that's that monster trophy. So what?
Yeah, monster trophy hint.
So is it all of these types? Is that?
Yeah, exploring the buttons, a little bit safer there. Some star gems you're just picking up.
It might be maybe just being a complete novice. I remember seeing this and other people playing it. The sound effect, the boss entrance is so good.
It's a lot of fun, right?
So good. Absolutely love it. What I will say is that the font size for both the music track and the boss thing, I'm not sure exactly. If it was me, I guess I'd try and either add some sort of pseudo drop shadow, so even if you weren't using the in-game so the in-editor font for the drop shadow, instead just use some form of effects trigger or just a semi-alphaed black cloud image just to distance it slightly would be kind of cool. And I might bring it down a notch in size just a little, because it takes up a fair bit of
it does
screen real estate. It's just a personal thing again, but I wanted to mention it because it's something I thought about while I was even as horrible as this is in a way to say, it almost size of the font and that particular part of the production almost hints at like mobile gaming style information relay. It's like a bit kind of not even the jump from PC to console, but from console to mobile. It's closer to that visual styling compared to the rest of the information in the game.
Yeah, I definitely get you there. I actually wound up adding some subtitle backing, just basically a half transparent alpha quad to get some text to pop later on. I went with the overall giant size of the of like the boss names, one so you can sort of read them at a glance, but also that it kind of the design thinking there was that it also it reinforces like the enormity of the boss itself. They also might stay on screen just a little bit too much.
Yeah, I wouldn't drop it much. It's not like I think that's still something to definitely keep, but just a little bit. It was just a little bit too much for me personally. But.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, I mean, I've got it on my list of considerations. It's as well. So I've heard the feedback a couple times. Thanks.
Watching. So I find. Oof, yeah, what's going on here?
It's demanding a different level of attention from you at this point.
So there's not masses of feedback that maybe I'm not doing damage
Nice,
to the boss.
Yeah.
It didn't seem to be like a clear...
Yep. So here's the thing is, when I made this with one of the very first bosses I made when I decided to make when I switched from doing a Metroidvania version of this, and the way that I did the damage states is like an onion, and as you do damage, it pops off the states or the non-damaged states to the damaged ones. The side effect of that particular implementation is that I don't get any flashing from the boss because I have the big boss health bar, and this is the only boss in the game that does this, but because I have that in the center screen, I was like, well, it sort of reinforces it, so I was like, it sucks, but also to tear this thing apart and put it back together would not be a small amount of work, so I'm just like, I want to do it, but bigger fish to fry.
There'll be a bunch of stuff that I and other people mentioned thinking that it would be quite a trivial task to fix or implement, but I do appreciate that it's not always the case when it comes to trying to fix stuff like that. But
when I made this boss, Shmup Creator didn't even have the enemy attachment system in terms of its rendering visibility, and that you could attach things that could remain invisible and then appear. So,
wow.
Things change and grow over time. But yeah, it's interesting. I want to do it, but yeah, I don't know. We'll see. So
yeah, I would say, because it is for me one of the big things for me was that not just this boss, but each boss I didn't quite get the same feedback that I felt I got from the rest of the game's combat. That I was actually like, I'll go into it. You have to hear me talk about it again and again. But yeah, that was one of the things that does stand out to me as something that I would love to see improved. But I'm not trying to say it's easy to do or there is a solution that you can easily implement. But that was a sticking point for me, I guess.
So to understand, so you mean the other bosses in comparison to this boss, or just bosses in general?
Bosses in general, and I'll detail it in later comments, so maybe we should revisit it then. But
okay, yeah, well then we keep going and we can take a look. All right, cool, awesome. Looking forward to hearing the feedback.
It's taking damage, or that there's what is that? I think we'll go try and get that on our next run. Yeah, I'm not sure. Am I supposed to be hitting? Try and get
so.
I discovered the secret. So
okay. There we go.
Yeah, it's cool. I think we'll go try and get that on our next run. Yeah, I'm not sure. Am I supposed to be hitting a specific part of him? Is he taking damage? It might be really obvious to someone else, but I can't.
Well, he did have a big scream there, and he's got a lot more battle damage, but yeah, the flashing is the big part.
And
someone's stuck.
Yeah, The bottom weapon, this.
So also, I need to do a pro tip series on it, but when you were stuck in that spot with the boss, so you're down, which is good, like you got stuck, but you could have used your super because it gives you invulnerability frames to super him and then pass through him because you get about 2 seconds of invulnerability, so that would have saved you from taking that damage.
And okay. The bottom weapon, this, it's kind of more instant now. So I guess that initial bottom weapon almost put me off using bottom weapon because of the charge up.
Mm-hmm.
And again, you're getting the impressions of someone who's.
Yep, I totally get it. Yeah,
I would say as well.
The immediacy of the weapons, I mean, it's a shooter, so having a charge-up weapon is a higher risk-reward. It takes a lot more time to aim, of course, and they're generally slower weapons because of that. You eventually discover, as you play more and more, that some of them are great. We do flip the script sometimes, like with that bottom kind of laser weapon. It does a lot of damage, but you have to get close, and so it gives you this kind of like nice trade-off. And I switched that through the weapon sets, but eventually, when you're doing bosses, you'll start to see like how effective you are between the top and bottom weapons, and that also starts to seal the deal.
It took the first run for me to actually recognize the power of the bottom weapon. We'll get to that point, but unfortunately, I don't recognize that during this run.
Oh, and why would you, right? But here's the cool thing, right? Is that you had a whole tutorial about it. But that might as well be ancient history. And the reality of gaming is that until you've developed a muscle memory around it, and all games are puzzles, right? Like the moment you start to understand, like when you're coming to a game for the first time, trying to learn what the rules are and what are the rules of the game, then it's like, how can I exploit the rules to be good at the game? And then how can I break the rules wherever that might be possible? And good designers allow you to find spaces like that because those become exciting, right? Because, this is old school balancing. Back in the day, I was a senior QA lead for the original Battlefront game and Battlefront 2 that came out. And this was the pandemic version. And for a long time, Empire, Rebels, Third Faction, they were all just cookie cutters of the same. Like a grenade launcher was a grenade launcher. They didn't have any different abilities. And so I came in, I played boatloads of PlanetSide 1 and 2, a lot more PlanetSide 1. And unless you as a gamer have a reason to argue for why one side is better in a situation than another, there's no dynamic gameplay there. There's no reason to have the conversation. So I came in and I wrote a couple one sheets that were like, okay, cool. This grenade launcher has a double bounce and explode. This one's a multi-shot. This one's a single, but it does more damage. And like just giving you those choices to explore as a player, but also understanding that, if you don't have anything to argue about and it's all the same, then there's no interest. It's just skins at that point.
I'd just say that this, I'm not sure what your name for it is, but this lightning curved beam thing is amazing. It's one of my favorite. There's a few things that are in my favorite list for Interstellar Sentinel.
Oh, heck yeah. Well,
that thing is badass, man. It's so cool.
I did a tutorial on the plasma beam. Now, this is the wrong end cap for it, but you don't really notice in motion.
Nah.
But so I studied Metal Slug. Metal Slug has some of the best sprite work ever, right? Their sprite work is it's really, really good. And the way they constructed their lasers, I kind of pulled it all apart, did some prototyping, and then worked with my artist to like do our own version of it, but also to capture elements like the crackle beam was a big part of that, but also making sure that the beam grows from the center so it gets whiter and brighter. And then these crazy garish colors, which kind of hits accents.
Does that always happen identical each time, or does that have variation? Because there was kind of like, I don't know if it was my second run or whatever, it almost felt like it came up bigger, like in a good way. It kind of almost whipped towards the camera or something, like it kind of...
So depending on what you're noticing, when it comes up, it also kind of depends on where you're at in screen. So it behaves the same every time for consistency's sake. But there are there's some exceptions to that with some of the other plasma beams. So so this is just a plasma beam in the engine. And then I wound up using some gravity and trying to get so you could have a couple of holes. And then to make it slow enough to where you can get used to dodging it. That was the other big piece.
Yeah, it's really cool. Really well done, man.
Oh, thanks, man.
As a first boss for a noob.
So, a great example, right? So you're down here at the chin. The laser's up there. The plasma beam is up at top. And then it's coming. It's coming. And then you're like, uh-oh. And then you could have come down. This is a really hard place to navigate. Like, he's so pissed right now. But you could have come down and into here, because that would have saved you. You can see the beam cuts off right here. But arguably in this phase of the boss, the better spot to be is now you have this short range weapon that's pulled you in the space, but being back in this area.
Boss for a noob, this is really, really good. Like, it's not so challenging that not in the fight.
Look, you sitting on your super. Just sitting on your super. By the way, most gamers,
and obviously,
they always save the supers. They save the powerful resource, and I consciously designed opposite for this game. I wanted it to be a utility and to use it.
There's a lot of familiarity stuff. This is literally my get there eventually playing the game. So
I had some feedback from a new player the other day, and they said, and this was super great. They said, when I get a secret, it drops multiple super power-ups in the game. And it feels like just a waste because I can only have one level of super. And I was like, well, if you have a super weapon out there on the board, there's no reason not to use a super. So because supers in this, and I need to do a deconstruction video, so like a how-to, but basically super gives you invulnerability frames. It cancels bullets. Bullets that are canceled give you soul bits. Soul bits then fill your super gauge. So if you wait for a large mass of bullets, and then cancel them, you get almost you don't quite get a full. In some cases, you can get almost a full super again, but then you also get bonus points on top of it because both from the items, but also you get points for doing damage to the enemies. So it kind of is this feeding mechanism. So it can be used defensively and offensively.
I get a lot like the bottom weapon. I eventually get there.
and look, dude, I mean, you're 2 minutes old in this game. No one gets any one of the holy grails of game design, in my opinion, right, is that as designers, we do our very best to design systems and experiences that have depth and that anyone can kind of play it. But as people come back to playing it, it should be enough. There should be enough variety to optimize, to better understand as you grow as a player, your tools, again, learning the rules. Now you understand more what you can do. And that's why I have things like in the game, you have time bonuses, right? So you haven't gotten your first time bonus yet, but you'll come back to this and you'll be like, oh, wait, I'm going to use my super. I'm going to use my bottom weapon. I'm going to bullet cancel. I'm going to get the secret. A secret gives you several power-ups. And then all of a sudden, not only do you just melt the boss into the floor, but then you also get a nice little time bonus on top of it, which gives you star gems. And it puts you on that path to how do you get a higher score? How do you optimize and improve your game experience? So
I delve into my own interpretation of some of the stuff you've also added in the game that I feel gives it great life. So we'll get to that as well.
And it's a power to the tool set. There's I have a couple of my own sort of secret bits. One of the best things about Shmup Creator is if I'm making it, you can make it. You don't have to know, you don't need code. It might be a little complex, but it's all configurable. So then it becomes okay, how do you want to configure it in a way that feeds your own systems? Because even what I've done, I could still go crazier with the high score system. I could go crazier in a bunch of other ways. Not even just counting just what it means to make bosses and things like that as well. So, all right.
So good. So the boss entrance and the boss exit were amazing. The boss taking damage was not obvious enough for me.
Ah.
Not sure what.
So the Hell Legions, they're a little bit chonky because they're just melee guys. Their whole purpose is to try to get you to understand that you can use your top weapon. In this case, if you point, do you know what point blanking is?
See this stubborn guy here that won't use his bottom weapon.
You're getting there. But do you know what the concept is of point blanking in shmups?
No.
So it is as it sounds. You basically take your gun and you shove it into the enemy's face and you pull the trigger.
Right.
And in the old school way, back like shmups basically, in some cases had a limit to how many bullets they could actually draw on screen, like player bullets. And so when you shot your weapon, if you already had 12 bullets on screen, your bullets would have to leave the screen before you could shoot your weapon again, even if you had auto fire. And so the gameplay that came from that is that if you have an enemy and you're right in the enemy's face, then all the bullets as you're shooting them are getting destroyed very quickly, and so it increases your rate of fire because you get more bullets out now. So it's just so it's called point blanking. And in our game, it works similarly if you have a weapon. Say this weapon here has a top shot and a bottom shot, and then the front. So if you take and you shove this part of the gun, which by the way is your weak spot, right, into the enemy, you're actually doing 3 streams worth of bullet damage. So you can get more effective. So there are cases where you don't always have to use the bottom weapon necessarily, but that's another aspect. And then there's it's not in this game, but there's another concept called bullet ceiling, which basically means when you get close to an enemy, if you're uncomfortably close, then the enemy doesn't actually shoot. And so it gives you the opportunity then to like use this other concept, right? And this is very, very common in a lot of like Dan Maku style of shooters. The shit that I know about shmups these days, and I'm still learning, man, I love it so much. And that's partially because of game development.
Yeah, you might have to go over that again after this at some point.
Yeah, for sure. Absolutely. I'm a resource. All right.
The solution to that is, Jesus, I need to start using that super.
Thinking about the super. I like it.
Trying to remember. So I got top weapon.
Decrypting that puzzle. Ooh, look at that. Look at you switching. You just killed like 3 or 4 dudes. You're like, all right, I don't know about that.
That does what, if I'm honest.
Another super opportunity.
Oof, that bottom weapon charge is.
Yep.
A little.
2 hit points on deck. Doing all right though. By the way, in most shmups by now, they are very face punchingly hard. You'd be just dying all over the place. Very hard not to make that, and that's kind of what the audience wants in some cases, right? But you have to decide for yourself what type of game experience you want to craft, and if you want to cater to both or what that looks like. So
it's like when you were talking about the tutorial and most people just shoot through it, and I'm one of the only people who've actually taken so much time to read through.
Mm-hmm.
Like I am aware that a lot of the shmup community, it's quite let's go, and I can understand it, but it's not necessarily where I still enjoy this kind of game, but it's not how I kind of view it of just getting in and yeah. Anyway,
well, it's still a full it's a full immersive experience, right? I mean, games, one of the things I love about games is that it's all about escapism, right? Like being as present as possible and just letting it wash over you across all the senses. And like in my mind, the game still needs so much polish, and I'm working on it. Only one man, and so it's not even where I want it to really be, but it's part of that appealing to all the senses as well, and trying to create something that's a bit more dynamic to be more casual friendly. I mean, when I play the game and I see these bullets at this point, I'm like, oh, the bullets are so slow, but I realize that if I just cranked it to what felt good to me, then I'm going to make a very hard shmup experience, and that's automatically going to close the door for a lot of players, right? So. Even worse, when you have a bunch of Twitch streaming friends like I do, including myself, and they're playing and reading text, and they're reading chat, and it's just like, oh yeah, you're just about ready to crash the car into the station, right? Because every time you look away, it's an opportunity for the game to snowball you at that point, right?
Yeah.
All right.
As far as I have, if I'm honest. So that was like a mid-level boss, or? So this is this.
Mm-hmm. Mid-level boss. Seeing the monster trophy hint, that's great.
Yeah, I don't know about the whole monster trophy thing.
Took some
yet.
damage there.
Sure I'll wrap my head around it.
There's one.
Again, as a complete noob.
This version.
Cool.
This version of the game has a pretty nasty bug, which were fixed in the new engine, but basically affects particle triggers that are set to activate if they were off screen when they were active, and then when they actually trigger when they're on screen, the particles wouldn't play. So there are all these like teleportation circles that are supposed to show up, because otherwise enemies popping on screen, that's like a cardinal sin, right? Like, because you never know where the player is going to be, and that, you know, you never want to feel like, oh, you had to remember exactly where they were going to appear from. So at least the teleportation effects before the enemies appear, and unfortunately, you have to set it up manually to do that in order to give it enough time for players to respond to that. So, but yeah, you can see that here. Those guys are just popping in. Oof.
Cool. So I got one. I'm not sure.
Took a little damage on the backside there. Whoa, almost got flayed by that laser with a sea Satan.
So I'm not sure.
Ooh, they're pushing.
Make any suggestion? Oh no, that's bad. I'm not going to make any suggestion on a fix, just to let you know that I was. So far, I'm a little confused about how the monster trophy system works.
And the hard part is, right, is it's great that you're externalizing your internal monologue. It's fantastic, right? But the fact that you're still cranking on trying to solve the puzzle of what the system is taking away it's taking away your attention to some degree from what's going on screen, and that makes the game harder on top of it, right? So
I think I treat the first run as a kind of warm up, so I wasn't too bothered if I kind of took damage here there.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
Didn't do too well and stuff, but I can see myself getting the opposite way about it and trying to perfect those runs in the future. So yeah.
Awesome.
I'm not sure what the solution there is, because I don't know yet how it functions, but maybe once I do figure it out, I might make some suggestions in my.
Yeah, you're in a good spot. Like, you're surviving well in the pocket here.
Yeah. Yeah, again, there, I'm not really sure if there was a specific. Can I ask? I'm about to say it, I think, but these gunships, is there a trick to the gunship things? I don't know what you call them.
Absolutely.
But you don't get to tell me. I got to figure it out.
No. Of course I'll tell you. The trick is, so generally the rule of thumb in shmups, for me at least, this seems to be kind of a truth, right? Which is, the longer an enemy is alive on screen, the more dangerous it is for the player. So part of it is that with these sea Satans, if you attack, so they do a couple things. So if you attack the top turrets, these basically just absorb damage. They don't damage the main base. And so they kind of distract you. Sometimes sometimes you need to actually kill them in order to keep your combo multiplier going. But then what you really want to do is you kind of get down, because essentially what the sea Satans are doing, right? And let's go back here. So sea Satans, they basically, they create the bottom right corner of the screen now is all basically no man's land. I mean, you have a little bit of a sweet spot down here, because the laser sort of forces you down, right? And you do have these missiles, and they're heat-seeking missiles, but you can shoot them. So they're not they're annoying, but like you can also save yourself often depending on the weapons you got. So when these guys come in screen, you want to switch to your bottom weapon. Bigger the hit points, the more damage you want to do, and you want to get up underneath them and really just destroy the ship from underneath. Otherwise, then what's going to happen is that you can kind of see it here, right? Like, they not only do they take the bottom right corner of the screen, but they basically start pushing you into a really hard spot in the upper left. Creates kind of a pocket up here. So when you have only the top missiles that come from, they're not even counting the adds, right? But yeah, so like one of the other sweet spots is like, if you damage the ship here, if you damage any whole part of the ship, you'll see that it actually starts to trigger battle damage, and you can destroy the whole thing at that point.
Is there any difference in any of the sections that you destroy in the ship, or is it Is it kind of equal in?
Yeah, so as long as you're not shooting the gun turrets, the demon turrets, as long as you're shooting anywhere else in the ship itself, it's all the same damage. And then what happens is that basically, script wise, we have essentially these plates that are overlaid, and then they're enemies that are attached to the Sea Satan, and then based on the amount of damage being done to the ship, those actually destroy, they blow up, and then we have the battle damage underneath, which then the cool side effect of that is that because we treat those as enemies as you're doing damage, that means that you actually can continue to pop your chain combo multiplier because those are enemy deaths at that point. The other thing that I do here, this is like one of my bits of secret sauce, right, is that for the first 4 levels of the game, I basically do a kind of a rule of 3. So I introduce a new enemy to you, and I don't introduce that enemy with a bunch of other enemies. I just let you try to understand how to defeat that enemy, to see what the attacks are, and to kind of deal with it the first time. So that's the first version. And then the next one that you see, I usually do them 3 at a time. Then I take enemies that you've already encountered, because we're layering up the game. Now you know how to deal with the Hell Legion. You know how to deal with the Robonoids. You've got a bunch of those, and so I then layer them on top to create more variety. Because now you kind of got an understanding what the enemy does. Now you're dealing with extra layers of that, and I kind of layer that up. And then after I get through that new enemy for the level, I reset it with, okay, here's the next enemy, and then I layer it up the same way. So it's kind of like a mix and remix of that. Now, I break some of those rules when you get the advanced monster trophies and some of the more deeper monster trophies. I still try to keep it. I try not to create brand new enemies you've never seen based on monster trophies, but it's fine because most players they're not going to be good enough to trigger all of that on the first run. So, and so I do all that way up through the first 4 levels. And then after that, I use challenge levels, which is a mixture of like taking the gloves off. So it's remixes of enemies you've seen in new enemy combinations, and then in some cases, a few new enemies sprinkled in on top of it. So, and so yeah, you can kind of see that. And the monster trophy in this case, like, wound up giving you more time, because also if you don't get monster trophies, you can't keep your chain multiplier going. But yeah, so this is your learning phase for the boss itself, or for the Sea Satan here.
So I'm not sure. I'm not gonna.
You can see how it's kind of pushing you around there.
Make any Oh no, that's bad. I'm not gonna make any suggestion on a fix, just to let you know that I was. So far, I'm a little.
And because
confused.
Because the Sea Satan lived through the whole time and managed to get off screen, then some of these remixed enemies and new versions are coming.
Just about how the monster trophy system works. Sure what the solution there is.
Also a good super opportunity.
How it functions, but maybe once I do figure it out, I might make some suggestions in my conclusion of the video. Oof.
And yeah, so the enemy, I really enjoy these like mid-size enemies that really demand using like higher damage weapons, kind of understanding the trick to how to deal with them. Because at the end of the day, it's pattern recognition, right? Once you start to identify how to get good at destroying types of enemies, then you feel good with the solution. And you might still find ways to optimize how to engage with the enemies. But that's also sometimes where I throw the kitchen sink at you to get you to use your supers or to get you to burn them on some of these bigger higher health enemies, and that's part of the design as well. Let me just double check that.
Super to be wise. I don't know if I can change that. I actually prefer my.
One sec, I'm stepping back. I was talking over you. So we're at 24:52.
Whether Y button did something, I've kind of forgotten the controls already.
Okay.
Personally prefer my super to be wise. I don't know if I can change that.
Yeah, you can remap the controls. Yeah, so Y would be up your upper right corner.
Eventually, I come to learn that you have it absolutely as it should be. So.
Right. I think I mean, whether it's in the bottom right button or it's the top right.
I think it's partly because I was so stuck on the top weapon that it felt like the super being closer made sense. But then obviously later on I switched to primarily the bottom weapon, and then all of a sudden it's perfect because you then have equal access to both your super and your top weapon from. So that's what I mean by eventually I get there to see how it should be kind of controlled. But
control mapping, it's the typical, like when you play a shooter or a fight game, like, you know, are your controls inverted, you know, or are they not, right? And some of it's just what you learn and how you map it, and then some of it kind of depends on where you come from and where you got your start too, because it's all muscle memory at the end of the day. My thinking there, it was that on the left face buttons, the top, so it's the top button is the top button, top weapon. The bottom button is the bottom weapon. So there's a spatial mapping that I'm trying to achieve there. And then I wound up putting the super off to the right side of the bottom weapon. So it's sort of like it's like less power, medium power, high power. And that was sort of the mapping. But the good news is we can remap controls too. So, and
I think I would have appreciated it more if I'd identified with the bottom weapon at the start, because then I'd be like, all right, cool, I get it now. Like I'm switching between the two and I've got my super just here. Like it all feels perfect. But at the time I was like, I don't understand why, you know, but yeah, you have to excuse that part of my...
No, not at all. Look, it's very valuable because you're, you know, coming from a QA background, right? What you experience represents hundreds of thousands of experiences, and it can't just be discounted. And and as you are building your own frame of reference, again, first time, right? Like you're only a virgin once. So now like the challenge and the desire of the game is, how do you optimize? How do you get better at it? Like what's the game have to offer? And if it didn't have those types of options and understanding, it would be less enjoyable at least in my opinion, right? Because there's less to discover in that case. Now there's, you know, like when you're also talking about like Dan Maku style games where, you know, like there's a lot of bullet hell. It makes sense in a lot of ways that all you're working with is two buttons. One for the most part, one for your main shot and one for your focus shot. And that second focus shot also slows down your ship so you can micro dodge, you know, because you're moving at high speeds and you need to go through these large bullet curtains, right? So, and just kind of figuring out how, when you design your own games, when you do the thinking through it, what really means to you and kind of your design bits, right? So, cool. All right. So yeah, we're at 25.5. Nice.
What the hell was that? Those yellow spinning things. Oh man, see that? It's so cool. So the enemy design and some of these death animations and the sounds, the background here. So the depth here between the I know you said he was gonna, I think he's gonna fix that foreground image jarring edge.
Yeah, the alpha stacking. Yeah, I got to go in there, man. The way I implemented this, I would do it so much differently this time.
It's not too confusing or anything. It's very clear. Yeah, it's excellent.
Yep, I know exactly what you're talking about. That's on my list. But
I'd want to drop it slightly, but to make it pop with a little drop shadow. That would just top that off. But yeah, like
we're talking about
how much is DrBossKey and how much is other artists, but the visuals and not just the final, well, it kind of is the final product, but not just the artwork, but the design itself and overall layout. It's just so well done. Okay, so
I wish we had drop shadow just as part of the text object. That'd be nice.
That was cool.
All right, so
Entirely sure what I did, but as in,
wait a minute. We'll double check that.
I'm still reluctant to use my bottom weapon.
You use that.
So,
good.
At this point, I was confused as to why the bullets seemed to have cancelled, and I was gaining points. I wasn't sure what had happened.
There's something that I really like about when bullets get canceled. Like they turn into they go from, you know, like threats to like, oh, here's some like goodies, right? If I turned it on for every enemy in the game, it loses sort of its like, you know, like, and I do it to, you know, sparingly, but
fun for 20 seconds, and then it would be
Yeah, then it's commonplace, and there's something you said for that too, because it's, you know, obviously like when you super cancel, but the super is so powerful anyways that you don't really notice as much, and you just kind of accept it. But yeah, being able to, in this particular case, because this is one of the first times that we're introducing to you that this is the bullet hell influence, right? Lots of bullet curtains here, still super slow. You've got lots of pockets where you can be safe. But then, yeah, when you kill each of these aspects, and the thing is that in horizontal shmups, it's a long way to look at the right side of the screen. Like it may as well be in another eternity, right? And it's very dangerous. So when you are killing aspects of the boss, getting the reinforcement that the weapons are getting less dangerous is sort of the way that I was kind of going with the conveyance there. That's why a lot of my bosses also from the right side are basically full screen feeling. So in this case, you have spots that you actually have to kill on the Fortress of Flesh. So you're not just perfectly, because it helps reinforce navigating the bullet maze. But yeah, that's kind of the thinking there.
Cool. That was cool. Not entirely sure what I did, but as in.
Nice, look at you. I'm not very good at shmups. Navigating through well, it took damage there, but hey.
Some bullets are giving me points, so I need to probably go for these skulls, I guess.
Perfect.
Okay, yeah, I think maybe some subtle UI highlights for some of this stuff might be cool. Again, it might be something I demonstrate with some quick visuals I put together. So is it this cool effect of my weapon that's doing some occasional bullet cancel or something? Yeah, I do really want my Seeker on Y.
Nice, we talked about that.
Because I'm not a very capable pad gamer. I don't, like I said, play a lot of... So I didn't get anything, definitely didn't get that.
You only took a couple points of damage. You didn't die to the boss. You did some dodges.
That's how you do it.
And you're very determined.
Determined. Very clever use of positive.
Everyone gets a trophy.
Like very cool. Yeah, I'd say some sort of prompt as to what do I do. Yeah, I literally was at a loss. I'm not trying to be difficult.
Yeah, you're good.
It was so surprised. I think it's obvious what I'm about to say.
Yeah, I mean, one of the things I can do at least over time, because that's when you first start. Whoops, go back. When you first start the ranking screen, you'll notice.
Yeah, I'd say very cool.
There we go. So we have this dark backing to make it all more readable, but then it turned out that this dark backing made it much harder to see your players. So then I sort of turn off the dark backing to emphasize the, because you're still learning the language of like how to go through portals, but I could fairly easily also put in like an arrow indicator here to help.
That's how you do it. Determined wording. I like that.
Yeah, it's easy. We do the shift between the two.
Wording.
This rank system almost broke my brain. This was so.
I've tried like a combo system thing, and I was like, "Jeez, man, what was he doing to get this to work?"
I might try to do a video on it at some point, but it's so complex that even trying to make it digestible with how to do it, I don't know if I can achieve that easily.
That's not one video. That's a saga you'd have to release.
Yeah, totally. And I have to pull it all apart again to build it.
Yeah. Oh god.
And I'm still debugging some of it.
Maybe a small pulsing scale or some words saying. Oh, could you?
Yep.
Hold on. I'm out of sync. Where are you at?
28:43.
Yeah.
All right, here we go.
Next stage or something.
Shooting out the rip.
Color font or something to highlight where it is I'm supposed to go next. But
nice. You see the danger indicator.
Again, man, I've been so excited to play this because, like, watching other people play it and stuff. yeah, it looks fun, looks cool, but I kept looking at these visuals and thinking, like, how does that feel when you're playing the game? And it is just excellent. I absolutely love it.
Huh. That's awesome, man. So real quick, I'll step back just a sec to show you this.
Go next, but
so I really wanted to have these foreground rocks, right? And these foreground rocks, I had some temp art I bought from our art pack, because my artist, he's only one man in this case. So I'm like, well, these things I want to solve. And no one could understand that these were foreground objects and that they were dangerous. And so I went on this visual journey. Like I've darkened down the background a lot more in order to have a little less contrast, to make the foreground pop. But running into stuff and taking damage sucks ass. But I didn't want to just have collision or turn it off. So two things kind of wound up happening. One is I wound up redesigning these pile of rocks to make them look evil, right? So we did these vines. They're red. They're spiky. It does not look like something you want to run into. And I was like, it still wasn't working. I was like, well, it's geometry. So maybe one of the things we could do, and it was just this moment of inspiration, is that we have these plant demons, and they're like in their bulb form. And we put them on here. They're again, red and orange, kind of dangerous looking. But now they're sitting on top of basically this geometry, which kind of also reinforced that it was evil looking. Mostly that worked because now as you're trying to shoot these enemies, and if you get closer to the enemies, they actually blossom and then shoot all their like gravity bullets, right? And so it kind of gave this like extra level of gameplay. And this was just all trying to design for this fact that we have these rocks that you don't want to run into. And then the final icing on the cake was, all right, we'll just throw up this danger graphic indicator right at the beginning to also sort of indicate like this is the dangerous spot. So, and this took so many iterations to actually get there, and it came from playtesting and watching people play and trying to solve these problems in our own context. Yeah, interesting.
Which is kind of weird because obviously it's like a newcomer to this and everything. I would have said that isn't a thing that I struggled to differentiate. I kind of felt almost like I don't need this. Obviously, everyone's different and sees it differently and everything else, but I would have said that like the visual language up until that point kind of suggests that it isn't somewhere you want to. I kind of see it on the same plane almost as those, I forgot what you called them, but the gunship things that I was struggling to understand how to destroy. But to me, that's where they sit on the
it's I mean, the previous versions of the old rocks, they looked, and granted, this was in the prototype version of the game, so like the forest didn't look the way it looked. It wasn't dark like it was, so it was way more mushy in terms of the visual clarity. It just wasn't there. So that was why it took many versions to work through both the art design, but the visual language, and then I actually wound up just off the cuff designing a whole enemy, like these flower demons, based on this one rock. And I would never thought that. And it was one of those things where it's like, oh, like I did some AI art visualization for like what I thought would work, and then we remixed it a bunch, and then my artist did the final versions, and we actually got this sort of happy accident trying to solve one problem with gameplay by kind of doubling down on this aspect of this level. Because I also wanted to have some geometry in the level to kind of change it up a little bit. So cool, man. Thanks.
This again, man. I've been so excited to play this because, like, watching other people play these visual stacks.
All right. We're at 29:22. Yeah, the version of this level that you get to with the monster trophies is way harder. That's why I score gated it from level 1.
Time. It's not really
now
I do remember it's something to do.
Oh yeah, you saw it.
Semi cheated. I had noticed other people doing that. So
it is. I've watched players avoid these like the plague for an entire game, and eventually I get enough patterns in there where like they have to go through them and they sort of get it. But I put the sound in, which is like just ching 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 sound, right? It's like just sort of like suggests bullet deflection. But it's one of those things where the enemy design is not a common enemy design in shmups. These are invulnerable enemies that are basically landmines. They're called lost soul wisps, right? And like everything else, the longer they stay on the board, because they're also blocking your shots, they absorb your homing shots, the more dangerous they make the rest of the game for you. So, and some people, like, for a while, people were like, "Oh, it's blue and glowing. It's like a power up." Like, and so they go and they get them, and you know, but I'm like, okay, people are starting to figure it out. But yeah, it's an interesting thing because they play quite a role throughout all the levels. But it was very hard understanding that you have to understand what your rules are by play testing, and then how to break them or tweak them enough to sort of suggest what the new mechanic is. All right, and here we go.
I do remember this from watching other people play it, is that if you go, ooh, that was terrible.
Do you see these bulbs opening, the fire demons? Creating more pressure. Ooh!
So damn, what are we doing?
Now, that was brilliant.
It is that,
because you
yeah.
basically, I mean, you have the hint on how to deal with these guys. So you're like, okay, what was it again? And you're trying to figure out these guys. So you start exploding them. You're satisfied that you remember how to deal with them. And then here, you have to do the dodge. You take a damage, but it's probably because you wind up looking at the Loki. Now, the whole time while you're trying to figure out these new things, this is the second time that we've seen a rock and we have these plant demons. And I don't even think in the first time, I think the first time you actually killed them super quickly. So you didn't even know that they become dangerous, because basically if you get close to them, then they flower and then they start pushing out their bullets, right? So it's interesting how like shifts in perception change the entire way that you play through this, because you could have exploded those things, taken those out, collected that Loki, and then you could have been more, because the further back you are, of course, the more time things have to come in from the right side of the screen. So yeah, it's all kind of a snowball of gameplay, right?
Oh.
But you just throw them on the bottom, which is good. Take the damage there. But this is one of the first times you're learning about gravity bullets. These are asshole bullets. And then, yeah, I think, what was that? That was... Yeah, so the gravity bullets are up. This one comes down. I think it actually hits you. Yeah, you got hit by that. That startles you a bit. And then you're like, wait a minute, pull me back. You see the bullets there. This is exploding because you had gotten hit and exploded this lost soul wisp, which then blossoms these. But again, these are the first times you're actually sort of encountering these enemies and understanding how to deal with them. So, and then you take a death.
I'd love to say that I learned my lesson and that we move on from that, but I think you'll find that
nope.
it's not the last time that.
If it's like me, learning the lesson is like I'm like a donkey in that respect. My ex-wife used to tell me, burro no come bizcochito, which basically means you can't feed a donkey cake. So good. I love her. She's amazing.
Oh, I don't know, I might have lost you here.
Yep. So we're at 30.
That's right there. That's fine. Yeah.
All right. Perfect. All right.
Yeah, if you
know what the sauce was good.
Those things detonate because you can't kill them otherwise.
Mm-hmm. Yep, you're getting it.
So cool.
Yeah, this is my nod to Mortal Kombat 2.
This, like,
that living forest,
yeah, like,
man, was amazing.
Sort of old fairy tale book illustration stuff, not like totality. But... Okay, so
yeah, you get the monster trophy though. Oh. By the way, next version of the game, the player bullets will draw behind the player, so you won't have this visual noise anymore, which is going to be amazing. Thank you, Sonny, for sure. I just posted that video before we got
not entirely
on this
sure
call.
about the monster trophy stuff yet, but gameplay wise, it's feeling great.
Got a secret there.
Good job, I put it on casual mode. That's all I can say. So what's this?
Oh, this is for secret again. Heck yeah!
Cool, I like that. So
Dude, that's
really
awesome.
well.
Now, I suspect you've seen secrets being collected in gameplay before.
Weirdly, I don't know that I had, like, because like I sort of said, I sometimes have it on in the background, so I've heard more than I'd seen, if you see what I mean.
So one of the cool parts about this is that you are one of the first people on the planet that I've seen that sort of intuited how to collect a secret. Most people just fly through them because in Shmups, the way you collect power-ups is you fly up, you grab it, and off you go, right?
It's one of my things that I go over multiple times, that I think it's so well telegraphed and implemented, the secret system. So for some reason it spoke to me.
I definitely appreciate it, because I mean, how we design things and then how people play with them, entirely different thing, right? And it's very humbling. Like, that's probably like iteration 10 of the secret system at this point. And I've been very lucky and humbled that, you know, again, we're breaking the paradigm in a shmup. What does it mean to collect a secret in this case? What does it mean to actually, gameplay wise, have to stay within a certain area, like an AoE, like area effect, having some kind of visual communicator? That's what you're needing to do. Having the pressure of the fact that the camera is always scrolling, so you have to keep pace. The first versions were really, really too small, right? Like, so I think we've landed in a good place, and you're actually one of the first people I've seen that have been able to be like, oh, like, cool. In terms of being successful just in the wild, right? Like, you didn't even get the training that's hidden at the bottom of the level select. So super cool. All right, here we go. Let's see what you wind up doing with it. Actually, let me go backwards a sec.
Like that. Cool.
Okay. Yeah, I'm just going back to 3059. So the secret found comes up. So you collect all the bits. Okay. Could have used your supers there because you had supers on deck. But all right.
But it's a very enticing highlight on the screen. It's great.
Nice.
It's so well telegraphed.
I changed the visual for your auto weapon here. It'll be way less crazy.
That was done. So yeah, I'm sure.
Pick up the Loki. That's good.
Pick up a few more.
Micro dodging through there. It's getting a little hairy. Starting to clear the deck. Good focus on the Avian Dark Mages. Nice. Overall, good dodging again.
My super, and it should be at certain points.
Got a super in pocket just in case. Now the plasma lasers, I also found that I think it's Dodonpachi has lasers that you attack as well. So I didn't even know that was the gameplay. But the Dreadmus, basically they're trying to zone you out, right? To the left side of the screen. So they're basically trying to when the laser comes up here, it's cutting the screen in half and absorbing your bullets. There are a few exceptions where you can shoot through the plasma laser, like plasma lasers can pass through lasers, but regular bullets get they're blocking. So it does this thing where it forces you, if you hang back, to take less shots on the Dreadmusk, which gives it more time to come out, giving you way more pressure. So getting forward is kind of the strategy there, but having to dodge the plasmas.
I think you were talking about being an opportunity for a super, as I was saying on my commentary, that I should be using my super, and then instead of using it though, I then try and navigate my way closer to this enemy, rather than just popping the super and just bullet cancelling all of this stuff. So to me, that isn't. Yeah, if you notice, I'm trying to work my way through just to use my super. And I could have just blown all of this out of the water. So, yeah, not the best little section there.
Yeah, I mean the thing with shmups too is the moment to moment is so intense. You're making snap judgments, and you're also starting to develop like your go-tos. Now with the super is 7 beams. Now, even though it's screen filling, they're still individual beams, and if those beams don't damage, if they don't actually collide with enemies, then you do a lot less damage if you super from the back of the screen or left side of the screen, as opposed to when you get close. The closer you are with the super, and that's why I kind of put that in the tutorial, where you try the super out now, you try it very close to the dialogue, and it destroys the dialogue pretty quickly. So because you get more, it's like point blanking, you get more beams, so you do 7 times the damage.
Yeah, cool.
All right, cool. Good stuff.
That off-screen laser thing, I see that it will prompt, but that is pretty savage. Don't want to try this passive fist by this thing. He's scared at the moment, even on casual. The
thing with pacifist mode is that you get a free life just for doing it.
sort of balances between the different
But
difficulties.
it's a good starting point. You got to work your way up to it. It's a lot more stressful.
And yeah, I've been playing a little bit
Whoa.
shields and it's pretty evil.
First time you're going to see the parasitic fairy plants. Visual noise from the auto weapon is just atrocious there, so that'll be all fixed. Arguably, that's why this here, all of this noise, and here's the fairy bullets, right? This created so much visual noise, and it's on top of you, right? Plus the backside that you barely can tell where your weak spot is, and as a result, I think the fairy actually wound up getting you with these bullets here. Yeah, I'm excited. This next version is gonna be great. Nice. I'm glad you like the weapon.
Love the pacing of the fire rate.
Uh-oh, here's the brain breaker.
This is going to be a death. Kind of wanted to kill this thing, but I'm going to...
You got a back shot there.
Go back to playing it kind of...
Yeah, I think the particles right now are just giving up. These should be the full particles. It'll be better than next. I did a pass on particles to optimize the amount of particles we're using.
Okay, interesting.
All right. Nice, you got a giant bullet cord. I think I down-tuned this weapon just a tiny bit in the next version too.
I do have the comment I get to on this. As if you let it play, it will get to it.
Okay. So right now,
yeah,
it's a good strategy. It's rewarding you. There's no reason to change it. You're making progress. So a lot of people would consider this bad design because there's nothing changing it up for you. Now, for the most part, things are going to change and then change it up for you. So you're not doing anything wrong. But it's a tough one because if I plug every hole, then I make the game much harder. So then it becomes a question like, well, how do you change it up in a way that kind of plugs some of your exploits, but only does it dynamically? So I've been working on.
At a later point, obviously, with my discovery of the bottom weapon, this section plays differently. Mm-hmm. So I don't know if that's something you can really work around, to be honest, because I don't know how the balancing of the damage works with yours, but it was noticeably like a completely different. So there's a couple bosses because of that fact, and I don't imagine there's going to be that many idiots that turn up and just use the top weapon like I did.
Oh, well, first of all, let's work on the language. You're not an idiot. Like there's nothing. Absolutely not. Like you don't need to, like, self-deprecation isn't needed here. Like people are going to play this way, and
I don't take it too hard on myself, even when I call myself an idiot. So.
Yeah, I mean, you know, like I'm sensitive to it because as designers and game developers, right, that you encourage the most you can, but players are going to play the way they want to play, and if they're, and that's one of the reasons why, in the damage between the top and bottom weapon. Like I went through multiple revisions where, I mean, it's 10x now. Like it makes me uncomfortable because of how strong it actually is, and to try to balance for that, because you're also trying to find that like balance between utility with the top weapon and usage plus the bottom weapon, and then the risk reward that comes with that. You know, as a result, I had to crank it up multiple times so then players could really just start to intuit the difference between that. Because the other side of this, and this is the type of player I was and I still am to some degree, and it's a common archetype of players, in that players will discover a weapon that they like and then they'll stay with it. especially if they feel like the weapon is fun for them to use and it's effective. And they will start to avoid all other weapons in order to continue to do that. And that's also kind of the way that I have played. But one of the things I want to change for my shmup was that I want to have lots of weapon changing and to really encourage that. But I can't force players to play that way. So then I had to do subsequent passes where I didn't force power-up grabs at any other points where you had to get them. And because I realized that if people want to play that way, then there's no reason not to. It's not going to be the path to getting the best scores, of course, because I want to make sure that all the core loops really reinforce themselves. But for me too, I like weapons. I mean, if I had more weapon slots, I'd put more weapons in the game. And then I could easily put I'd love to take a page from Celeste, right? In that every time you take damage, instead of having hit points, your weapon set is now your hit points. Don't have the ability to do that in this version of the engine, but someday maybe. But also if I had, we have, because it's a set of 3, we have over 55 weapons in the game. So for me, it's a lot of fun in the moment to moment, the utility changes, and there's an optimum path if you're killing everything and you're collecting every power up and you're doing pacifist mode, where then this next layer of getting the right tools just at the right time, and then having your brain go, oh, it's a top-down spread. This is going to be great in these particular areas. So being able to design, I'm still doing designs for that, but there's a core underbelly with that. And it changes the moment to moment, which a lot of people don't understand the weapon sets. I think it's a little bit better now with the gun portals, but and why weapons are changing. That's also a tough one. And there's so many that it creates confusion. So it's both something I really like about the game, and it was very, very near and dear to the core aspect of the game, but it's also so much further outside of what other shmups do. Now, granted, I mean, look, is it Gradius? It's not Gradius. It's not R-Type. I think it's R-Type or Gradius. One of the newest ones, I think it's R-Type. That they have 100 ships, but you're only picking a few weapon sets in that ship. And then you're going and having your adventure. And I've sort of taken not necessarily that concept, but the concept of a lot of weapons, and then put that into the moment to moment game loop, which is a little bit stressful because you don't know what you're going to get. It takes a long time to learn these things, but and I know now at this point, I've known forever, if I'm using one weapon, I already know what the next one, what the bottom weapon is, or vice versa. Right. So it's a lot to ask for players, but maybe it's the secret sauce.
It's a fun discovery element of Interstellar Sentinel so far, has been these weapons do this, and the auto weapon does this when you have this, and do I want to go pull down from collecting the different power-up types and stuff, or actually I died, so now I'm kind of back to a weapon I enjoyed, and this is good for this scenario. And yeah, it's been one of the most enjoyable features, I'd say, of playing it so far. So
that's been some feedback that I've gotten too, where not every weapon, so this is you'll see if you do some reading, the wisdom is that if you have 20 weapon sets, or 20 weapons, right, 20 different weapons, that weapon 20 can't be 20 times more powerful than weapon 1, right? So you can increase your power increment, but you have to do it, you can't do it 1-to-1. So, and maybe you get to 2x or 3x more powerful with that particular weapon if you go from, the top weapon to level, to the 20th weapon in terms of top weapon. Now, the other side in thinking, though, is that power doesn't necessarily mean that it has to just be straight up more damage. It can also be in utility. So I try to take more of a utility approach, or a risk versus reward approach, in that if the weapon's a short range weapon, it does a lot more damage, at the higher ends of that. So it's been a lot of fun trying to balance all this stuff. But I've gotten feedback that people feel sometimes like they get this weapon set, it's hard to use. This is one of those, and that they wish they had the previous weapon. So again, I try not to force people to, unless they die, but into certain weapon sets at that point. But it also meant that I've done, in the last few versions, I've been beefing up the perceived lack in terms of weapons, because every time you power up, you want to feel stronger. And that's not always the case when you go from you got a big wide spread and now you got a vertical spread. it's too much of a change utility wise for people to understand or to even really enjoy off the cuff. So it's been a fun thing to design for. All right, I appreciate that. Let's see here.
See, the flip is good, but I'd say this boss, or I'm not even sure, is this a mid-boss or a boss? I'm lost as to where I am.
And here comes the change.
So maybe that first one, because of its...
This weapon is so much fun. You can point blank with this weapon. You can shove it into the enemy, and it just melts. But you have to get really close. It's like a kind of like a crazy shotgun at that point.
More interesting stuff.
Look at you dodging like a
all
champ.
Just personal opinion, but I thought I'd share my thoughts.
I appreciate that.
Yeah, I think I'd beef up the indicator that I'm doing damage to these bosses. Might be specific to each boss, some way of doing that. But I definitely feel like
someone got smacked. Yeah, with her in particular, she's white, and most of the enemy flashing is a more of a brighter red. So, and so like you have the flashing feedback here on the bosses. We don't have an easy way to beef that up. Other than like I have the sort of the battle damage with the wings and a few other things. So, did you have any thoughts in particular, like on?
I mean, just off the cuff, like for her in particular, I might have tried to go with something where it's like if she's actually taking damage, there's a like as if you're chipping away at a statue effect or something. Just some sort of hint that now you are doing damage and now you're not, because the flash is so subtle that with everything else that's going on the screen, and like you said before, the kind of distance on this ratio.
Mm-hmm.
It isn't always apparent that I was doing damage, like, and without a bar, it's kind of like, even though I'm enjoying the experience, I don't feel like, oh, I know that I'm doing damage, or there's a specific point that I have to hit or not, because there isn't enough visual indication there. But that was, like, again, it's just my personal experience of it. It might be super obvious to other people and they prefer it this way, but to me, I kind of felt like in relation to everything else, that stood out. In that everything else is this great sense of feedback when you kill stuff, when you pick things up, your weapon damage, everything's so clearly telegraphed, and you know what's you and you know what's the enemy. And for some reason, to me, that I'm doing damage to the boss part didn't hit home as hard as all the other stuff. So that's why it stood out and became a recurring theme of some of what I said. So,
yeah, no, I appreciate that. Yeah, I'm just kind of puzzling over the, doing battle damage is a more complicated process in terms of like scripting for that to happen. And the flashing is supposed to be the big piece of that. And then it gets reinforced by the bar. The other side is that the bosses, when you're doing, after you do chunks of damage, they're leaking the soul bits, the green soul bits, but there's a lot of stuff going on. So in the first time as well. So yeah, I'll think on it. I'm not sure what I can do in the short term, other than changing the flash of the color. Okay.
Yeah, I mean, we can talk off recording, because I've got some stuff you might be interested in where I've kind of got some things that kind of fit into that, that zone. So anyway, yeah.
Cool.
It was
all
just
right.
mentioned. That was
Awesome. Let's do this. I know you got a smoke break coming.
Telegraph there for it's respawning back in or something. Aha. Triple guessed myself there. Sheens again. What a banger this is. Yeah, this music, this song, man, is so good. Loving those kind of acidy synth. Whatever's going on.
Yeah, we still got some new music tracks coming too.
But it's so epic and so epic in regards to the multiple stages, and this is so good. Great design, well executed.
Thanks, man.
I'd love to see a little more feedback that I'm doing damage. That would be my one critique of that particular element.
It's interesting that you're not seeing the constant flashing on the boss here.
Yeah, like I kind of noticed it on them, but it's like it wasn't enough for me to be like I'm doing damage. Like it kind of got lost a little bit in it. It's not that I wasn't aware that it necessarily definitely wasn't there, but it wasn't like obvious enough. I guess like if I'm concentrating on the left hand side of the screen because I'm microing or whatever the technical term is, that my peripheral can still pick up that I'm definitely making an impact on the boss. That's the bit that I felt like I was missing, is that there's no shake to it or like a flash or something, so that there's definitely a difference between when I'm not doing damage to the boss. So if I'm missing, or like I'm using a weapon that doesn't have the range to hit the boss, like it wasn't obvious enough a difference between the two. I am doing damage, I'm not doing damage, that sometimes I got lost in it, and that was that's
okay. I can appreciate that.
Where my obsession with that particular thing it comes from. So yeah.
No, I mean I appreciate it. It's valuable feedback. Maybe there's some things that could be done, and that would read as battle damage. Okay, I'll have a chew on that as well. All right.
First part of this boss was too long. The rest of it's been absolutely brilliant. But I'd still like to see a little more.
And by first part of the boss, you mean the very first part where you were fighting the? Yeah. Okay. Where you were. Part of it was the weapon and the way you were attacking the boss. Got it. Okay.
Feedback that I'm doing damage. Backgrounds. So well done. Hey,
oh, Loki's.
Something.
Really? Did you get all?
Or did something. Oof. I'm definitely not going to have the bottom two. Or the pacifist mode. Audacious. Let's go. That is what I'm talking about. Right, I might take a short break there before I head into Shrivas Mountain. Shrivas Mountain.
And that's the place to go. Again, that's where all the cool kids are going.
I'd just like to see a little more. This is where to go next on that icon, like something there. Anyway, I'll be back. Catch you guys soon. Cheers.
And a little fade out. Okay. So I know this is taking much longer than we expected. I know you want to take a break as well. Did you want to come back and do the next ones and do it all as a whole thing? Take a little break, or?
Yeah, if you're up for it, man, that'd be
cool. Yeah, sure, man.
Definitely. I have to probably take a half hour or something. So.
Okay, so let's see. In that case,
okay for you. If it's not, then I don't mind taking it a bit longer if you want. If you want an hour, and then.
I was more powering through it. So
yeah.
But so you did 3 parts. Did you do a full playthrough or?
Yeah. So the first playthrough finishes midway or a third of the way through the third video, which I need to actually start uploading. Sorry, I forgot about that.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, so that should be up by the time we get back anyway.
Okay.
We can obviously do the second one.
We also, I mean, I've got time. I mean, I've got more time later this week too, if you want to break it into pieces.
Yeah, man. Yeah. We don't have to rush it tonight. Whatever suits really. But obviously, like I said, I need the occasional smoke breaks.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, I know. I've got plenty of friends that's their jam, so I know it for sure. Okay, so then what we'll do then? Let me open this up here. Pooch. All right, cool. So first off, thank you. I definitely appreciate it. It's cool to get your thoughts. It's cool to see the production value, and it's been good to reflect on. So I've got a couple notes here for sure. So then what we'll do is just hit me up for tomorrow. Here, give me a sec. Here, how about I do this as well? 1 second. We'll just do the outro here. All right. If you've gotten this far in the video with a couple nerds waning and waxing over everything and kind of talking game design and enjoying ourselves, thank you so much. There'll be links in the description to Polygon Workshop's YouTube channel, and you should be on the lookout. There's more coming. We'll take a look and put the content around this. Again, the first time is always there's nothing quite like it, so getting the most out of it has been a lot of fun. Very much thank you, and we will see you next time.